In this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how you can create a Lego portrait in Adobe Photoshop. So these are some examples I have prepared earlier, and as you can see, I have used various color combinations to get various outcomes. If I come to another example and zoom in, you can see the Lego texture is actually quite detailed. If you wish to take a closer look at the finished examples, you can download each document. The link is in the description. For this tutorial, I'm going to demonstrate how to create the Lego portrait of Bob Marley. I'm going to start with the image here on the left and finish with something that looks like this on the right. So let's take a quick look at the finished example. Now, at first glance, I'm sure you will agree this image looks very complex. But fear not, we can achieve this result in only a few steps. In this tutorial, I'm going to be using a particular Photoshop filter and various pan overlays to get the result. Now, if we take a quick look in the Layers panel, you can see that I have several layers here. I'm just going to toggle the visibility of these and start to reveal them back from the bottom up. So to create this artwork, I have used various colored layers that build up to create the overall portrait. In this example, I have got 5 layers of color here, and you can see them here numbered 1 to 5, and also a background layer. To follow along with this tutorial, I suggest you download the Lego Image Pack and Photoshop Pattern plugin I have prepared earlier. This is going to make it really easy for you to have a go yourself. You can find the link in the description. So with that said, let's get into it. So first of all, you will need a subject. I have this picture of Bob Marley here, which I acquired from a simple Google search. Once you have your subject, you will need to create a new document. Now, to keep this simple, I'm going to start with a specific document size, and I recommend you do the same. This will guarantee you get similar results to mine. So I'm going to come to File, New, and set the dimensions of the width to 6000 pixels, the height to 6000 pixels, and the resolution to 300 dpi, and click OK. Okay, so to create this artwork, I'm going to be working to a particular grid size, and each square in the grid is going to be filled with a Lego square. For example, if I look at the finished composition, I'm going to toggle the visibility of the layers and activate the grid. I can do this by coming to View, scrolling down to Show, and clicking on Grid. I'm just going to zoom in here slightly so we can see the grid a little bit more clearly. So here's the grid. Now if I toggle the visibility back of the artwork and zoom in slightly, you can see each Lego square fits perfectly into a square in the grid. Now this grid consists of squares that are 50 pixels by 50 pixels, and this has been done for a very good reason. If I zoom out, we can see that the image is in fact composed of lots of little squares, kind of like pixels. If the squares were any bigger, we might not achieve as much detail, though if the squares were smaller, we would certainly capture more detail. But then the Lego texture would not be as legible. So I have decided to go with this size as a balance between detail of the character and the legibility of the Lego texture. Now if I open the image pack, we can see the Lego squares here and the color guide I'm going to use a little later. And in case you're wondering, these squares are also 50 pixels by 50 pixels each, as you can see when I activate the grid. Okay, so back in the new document, I want to customize my grid guide to be 50 pixels by 50 pixels. To do this, I need to come to the top menu on the far left and click Photoshop, scroll down to Preferences and select Grid. Now I know on PC, for PC users, you have to go to Edit and scroll down and you'll find Preferences there. So in the properties, you need to come to your grid preferences and change the grid line every to value 50 pixels. Make sure your subdivision is set to 1, and I'm going to change the color to magenta and click OK. Now if you cannot see your grid, you will need to come to View on the top, scroll down to Show, and click on Grid. So now I can see the grid here in my document. Next, I'm going to open up my subject image in Photoshop. Then I'm going to come to Image Mode and change this to Grayscale. Once the image is grayscale, I will press Command A to select all, Command C to copy, then I'm going to close the document by pressing Command W, as I no longer need it. Back in my new document, I'm going to press Command V to paste, and there is my image on a new layer. Now, depending on the size of your image, you will need to either scale your image up or down to get a nice composition in your document. By pressing Command T, I can activate Free Transform, and I'm going to scale my image up like so by holding Alt and Shift on the keyboard and clicking and holding and dragging one of the pointers up. I'm going to drag up the top right hand pointer like so. Keep in mind that the more your subject fills the canvas, the more detail you are going to get later on. Once you have positioned your image, rename the layer to Face. If your image is a little pixelated, don't worry too much, but make sure it's still clear and legible. So now we can see the grid over the image, and I can see a lot of squares over the face, and it's looking like we are going to get some good detail. At this point, we can toggle the visibility of the grid. I can do this by coming to View, scrolling down to Show, and selecting Grid. Okay, so once you're happy with the positioning of your subject in your document, it's time to cut away the background. Now, we do not need to be too precious about this. I'm going to grab the pen tool and simply click around the outside of my head area and shoulders like so. Once I have drawn my path all the way around the head and shoulders, I'm going to right-click on my path and make selection. Then I'm going to press Command-Shift-I to invert the selection and simply press Delete. Don't worry about using a mask right now, we don't need one at this time. So I have deleted the background away from my subject. Next, I'm going to make some further modifications before we move on to the next step. So this time I'm going to choose the lasso tool, and I'm simply going to click into the hair and delete away parts of the background to further refine my cutout. Again, don't worry about being spot on with this. As you can see here, I'm just cutting out rather crudely, and that's cool for now. So after a little while, you should end up with something that looks like this. Right, so now I'm going to apply a filter to this image to give it a pixelated appearance. With the layer selected, come to the top menu and click Filter, scroll down to Pixelate, and scroll down and click on Mosaic. Upon click, a Properties box will appear. Now remember we set the grid to 50 pixels earlier? Well, now I'm going to set the cell size to 50 and click OK. And if I zoom in a little, now we can see the image has been pixelated. And if I come to View, Show Grid, we can now see that our grid matches up perfectly with the pixels in our image. So now we know that each pixel in this image is approximately 50 pixels by 50 pixels. Excellent! Okay, so I currently have the subject cut out on a transparent layer. And I can see this if I toggle the visibility of the bottom layer in the Layers panel, and I can see all the grey and white squares in the background. What I need to do next is fill this transparency in white. An easy way to do this is to quickly create a new layer. I can do this by pressing Command-Shift-N and click OK. And with the paint bucket tool, make sure the foreground colour is white, and I'm going to fill the layer like so. Then I'm going to move this new solid white layer down behind the pixelated subject. Now I'm going to select both layers by clicking the top layer and holding Shift on the keyboard, select the layer below. With them both selected, I'm going to press Command E, and this will merge the two layers together. So now I have my pixelated subject on a white background, but on a single layer. Now, with this layer selected, I'm going to come to the bottom of my Layers panel and add an adjustment layer. And I can do this by clicking on the middle icon, fourth from the left. Upon click, I will have an options box to choose from. From this, I'm going to choose Threshold. Upon click, the Adjustment Layer panel will appear, and you can see the effect that that has had. So now in the Layers panel, we will have a new adjustment layer above the face layer. Before I move on, I'm going to select both the adjustment layer and the face layer by holding Shift and selecting them both. I will then press Command G to group the two layers, and I am now going to rename the group to 1. So in the new group, I'm going to click on the adjustment layer, and in the adjustment layer panel, I'm going to toggle the threshold value by clicking and dragging the holder all the way to the right, and hopefully your subject will turn completely black like so. Okay, so let's take a quick look at the finished result here. What we can see is 5 instances of colour working from the outside in. We can see that if we take a look in the Layers panel, and if I toggle the 5 steps, we can see the progression. Now, you don't necessarily need 5 steps. It just so happens that I decided to go with 5 steps for this example. You can also get some interesting results with 4 or even 7. If you look at some of the examples that you can download in the description, you can see some of the variety you can get. So it's something to experiment with. So now what I need to do is create these different instances in order to use various colours. Okay, so back in the current work doc, I have this group here called 1. What I'm going to do next is quickly change the opacity of this group to 20%, and I can do this up here in the top right of the Layers panel. So now that's looking quite light. Next, I'm going to right click on this group folder and select Duplicate. In doing so, I'm going to rename the group to 2. And now you can see the image is a little darker, as now we have that group on top. Next, I'm going to click into this new group and select the adjustment layer. Now in the adjustment layer panel, I'm going to click and drag the far right point over to the left, but only slightly, until I start to reveal some white area on the face. But be sure not to reveal too much, as we are going to do this a further 3 times. Now as you can see, because we changed the opacity of the groups to 20%, this is going to allow us to see through the group and see the one below. And as we tweak the threshold adjustment layer, we can compare it with the group below. Quite convenient. So now I'm happy with this, I'm going to duplicate the number 2 group, and this time call the group 3. And again, click into the group, click on the adjustment layer and toggle the threshold pointer in the adjustment layer panel. Again, pulling the pointer slightly to the left to reveal more white area. And now we can see the steps are beginning to take shape. And again, duplicate the group and call it 4. Back into the group, click the adjustment layer and tweak the adjustment layer slightly and continue. And lastly, duplicate that group and call it group 5. Back in the group, click the adjustment layer and tweak the adjustment layer slightly. So now we can see the steps of progression through the opacity. For your last group, in my example number 5 here, try and capture some detail in the eyes, nose and mouth. Eyes being the most important, which I have managed to achieve here. So we pixelated the image using a filter and then used the threshold adjustment layer to separate various areas of detail from the original flat image. So once you are happy with your progression, be sure to click on each group and change the opacity back to 100%. Okay, so the next step is to select all the new groups in the Layers panel, selecting the top folder, then holding Shift and selecting the bottom folder, and I'm going to press Command G to group these folders into a new group. And I'm going to rename this group to Original. Next, I'm going to duplicate this group by right-clicking and selecting Duplicate, and I'm going to name this folder Face. For now, I'm going to toggle the visibility of the original group, as we do not need this anymore. though I'm going to keep it safe in case I want to refer back to this later on. So with the new face group, I'm going to toggle this down so I can see all the contents. And now I'm going to select each group and press Command E to merge the groups into single layers. So I'm going to go down my groups and press Command E on each one until I have single layers. So now I need to get rid of all the white in the flat layers, so I can get transparency around the black area on each layer. To do this, I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. So with layer 5 selected, I'm going to come to Select up here in the top and click Color Range. Up will pop a Properties window. With this open, move your mouse cursor into your composition and the cursor will change to a color picker. This is Photoshop asking you which color you'd like to select. Now I'm simply going to click on a white color from my composition and click OK. Then you will see all the white in the layer is now selected. Now I'm simply going to press Delete on the keyboard and I'm left with the black area set on a transparent layer. But now I can see the layer below. And I'm going to press Command D to deselect. I'm going to click the layer below, number 4, and again come to Select, click Color Range, select a white, and with all the white area selected, press Delete on the keyboard and press Command D to deselect. So using the same technique, I'm going to delete the white area from the layers 3, 2 and 1. Soon you will end up with what looks like a big black silhouette, and that is because the black layers are all sitting on top of each other. The last thing I need to do is create a new layer. By pressing Command-Shift-N, I'm going to rename this to Background. Then with the Paint Bucket tool, I'm going to fill this in white and move this layer to the bottom of my face folder so it's going to sit behind all the layers above. So now it's time to bring in some colour. So before we start, I recommend you come to the Logo Image Pack folder and install the Pattern plugin. This is a plugin I have previously created inside Photoshop and saved. This is going to enable you to use all the Lego colour squares. To install the plugin, simply double click on the file and you will notice Photoshop will open. At first glance, nothing will have happened, though if you now come to Edit and scroll down and click on Preset Manager, a window will appear. Now simply click on the preset type drop down and select Patterns. And there you can see the plugin has loaded in all the Lego square patterns for you. And we are going to be using these a little later. So for now, just close down this window. In the Lego Image Pack, you will also find the colour swatch. And as you can see, each colour represents one of the Lego pattern colours. So with the colour swatch layer selected, I'm going to drag this into my new composition. That's looking a little small, so by pressing Command T, I'm going to just scale this up a little like so I can see it quite clearly. Now keep in mind, when working with colour, try and start light with the figure and build up to dark. You will find you will get the best results this way. But for the background, this can be any colour. So with the colour swatch here ready to use, first select the background layer in the Layers panel and double click on this layer and up will pop your Layer Styles properties. I'm going to select Color Overlay from the menu on the left, then the properties should appear for this in the middle here. Now I'm going to click the coloured box and with my colour picker I'm going to choose a colour from my colour swatch. So let's go with a green colour and click OK. Next I'm going to select Layer 1 and again double click to pull up the layer styles. Just like earlier, I'm going to select Color Overlay and click the coloured box and select a colour from the colour swatch. This time I'm going to go for a darker shade of green. Next, with Layer 2, I'm going to do the same process. Double click on the layer to pull up the layer styles, click Color Overlay and choose a different color on the color swatch. Next, double click on layer 3, choose overlay and select another color up on the reference color swatch. So using this technique, I'm going to add color overlays to each layer, referencing them from the color swatch. Now, you may want to play with this for a little while and experiment with various color options until you get something you are happy with. So for my example, I'm going to go with this color combination. Pretty cool, huh? Now, you don't necessarily need to do it this way. You could go straight into using the pattern overlays, which you're about to see. But I have demonstrated this technique as a way to experiment while keeping your colored swatch in view. Now, if we take a look at the finished version, we can see that we have the Lego block texture. So next, I'm going to add this texture to each colored layer to make it look more Lego-like. So in the previous stage, we used the color strip to choose the colors. So by now, you should have a selection of colors you are happy with. So I'm going to come back to the first layer, the background layer, and double click on the layer to pull up the layer styles again. This time, I'm going to check off color overlay, and this time, check the pattern overlay property. In the menu to the right, I'm going to click on the pattern box, and you should now see all the Lego squares available to choose from, as we installed the pattern plugin earlier. So now I'm going to go ahead and select a color. So the previous color was the light green. So I'm going to find this light green Lego pattern and click that one. And check it out. The pattern has been applied to the background layer. So I'm going to proceed to select the next layer above, layer 1, double click on the layer, deselect the color overlay and select pattern overlay. And I'm going to make sure I select the same color. And check it out. If I zoom in, the pattern perfectly matches the shape. Nice. So I'm going to select the next layer above, layer 2, and in the layers panel, double click the layer and deselect the color overlay and select pattern overlay. And again, I'm going to make sure I select the same color. Bingo. So I'm going to continue to double click on each layer and change the color overlay to the matching pattern overlay. And soon you should have something that looks like this. Now I have my Lego portrait complete with color and the Lego texture. So the last thing I need to do is press save. And I'm going to save this to my desktop and I'm going to call this Lego Bob. And that's how you can create a Lego portrait in Adobe Photoshop. So now you have your finished portrait, it may occur to you that the document is pretty big in file size. Well, if you save a JPEG now, it will be really high quality and you will have all the detailed Lego texture. Though, if you want to save a version for the web, then I suggest coming to your Layers menu, in the top right, scroll down and select Flatten Image. But make sure you have saved your document before this, because this is going to flatten all your layers. With the document flattened into one layer, come to Image Size and change the document to a width of 1000 pixels. That should make it considerably smaller, yet still maintain a clear Lego texture. Now, if I come to File, scroll down and select Save for Web, up will pop a window. And I'm going to make sure that the preset over here in the right is set to JPEG, and I'm going to change the quality to 70%. And I can see down here in the bottom left that the output will be around a couple of 100 kilobytes, so not too bad. So I'm going to click Save and save this to my desktop and click OK, and there it is. Now remember, when you're back in Photoshop and attempt to close the document, make sure not to save it, or you will lose all the layers we have created previously, so take care. So that is how you can create a Lego portrait in Adobe Photoshop. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. If you liked the tutorial, hit the like button on my Facebook page and even add me as a friend. Always willing to chat to you guys. Don't forget you can download the documents you saw in this tutorial. All links are in the description. If you guys have a go at this yourself, be sure to come and paste it up on my Facebook wall. I'd love to see what you guys can come up with. Well, that's it for another video, brought to you by tastycheats.com. Thanks for watching, have fun guys, and I'll see you next time.